Hi gang, welcome back to the Ask the R podcast. If you're finding us for the first time, this is the only podcast you need for all things tree and ecology in the UK. In this episode, we're going to be having a look at something really controversial, biodiversity net gain or BNG 1 year on. What's going on? Is it working? Stick around and stay tuned.
Hi gang, mandatory biodiversity net gain came in with a bang about 18 months ago now, but is it actually delivering for nature, or is it just another box ticking exercise slowing everyone down? Today I'm cutting through the noise. Welcome to the Ask the R podcast. So for new listeners, welcome to the Ask the Art podcast. I try and use this as a channel to help people. That is our mission within our own companies, just to help people cut through the noise when it comes to trees and ecology with planning applications. Try and put things into plain English so that you can get your project back on track and move forwards. But first, we have a couple of features that we do within the podcast. And first we've got this one, which is called You Couldn't Plan It. Hi folks, it's time for You Couldn't Plan It, the feature where me and my team have scoured the internet for stupid, silly and downright infuriating planning related facts. Let's go. So this one is very topical and it's possibly not infuriating. Well, I suppose it is infuriating to some people, but this is about the Sycamore Gap tree felling. So we've got an article here from BBC News, back from the end of July, which basically says that these two guys have finally been jailed. So if you haven't been following this, essentially what happened was, up on Hadrian's Wall in Cumbria, there was a very significant sycamore tree. It had been used in a number of feature films like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves and things like that. It was a very, very high profile tree. From an arboricultural perspective, I mean, it was asymmetrically, it was very nice to look at, but you know, we don't tend to get terribly excited about sycamore trees, but this one really pulled together the public behind this. And basically these two characters, Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, who denied criminal damage at their trial but have since admitted to it by attempting to blame each other backwards and forwards for whatever reason, and it's never really become clear what happened. We thought initially it was a falling out with the National Trust, which I can kind of understand, but I think what happened is that they just did it for clicks, essentially, for likes on TikTok, which seems absolutely ridiculous. And they went up there and they felled the tree, which has been described as irreplaceable, and it is. There may well be some regrowth from the stump, but that's not going to survive in that environment. And these guys have now been jailed for 4 years and 3 months. The article says that they were convicted of criminal damage after filming themselves using a chainsaw to illegally fell the landmark tree by Hadrian's Wall in Northumberland, not Cumbria, then Northumberland. They were sentenced at Newcastle Crown Court, and the justice rejected a claim of drunken stupidity and said that while a full motive was still not clear, felling the tree and the ensuing outrage gave the men some sort of thrill. The National Trust, who owned the tree, said that it was more than 100 years old and it could never be replaced. The pair's friendship imploded in the aftermath. I mean, who could have seen that coming? As the public revulsion became clear to them, and they drove to the site under the cover of darkness in the early hours of the 28th of September 2023. So that was nearly 2 years ago now. We're recording this at the beginning of September 2025. They used the winds of Storm Agnes to help them topple the tree at the UNESCO Heritage Site, the court heard. The value of the tree was disputed, with prosecutors saying it was worth about $458,000 and Graham's team claiming it was about $150,000. But Mrs. Justice Lambert said the exact financial price did not really matter, which is quite true. So we use something, there's an arboricultural tool called CAVAT, and we basically use that for measuring the financial value of trees. So, for instance, in London, if a utility company needed to take out 2 or 3 trees, the local authority would use this to price it up to get a financial compensation and to take that forwards with replanting as well. The judge went on to say the tree was a landmark of Northumberland and a symbol of untamed beauty of the landscape around Hadrian's Wall. So that, I think, probably in my entire arboricultural career is the first time that we've seen anybody jailed for that length of time. And the article goes on to talk about the tree was actually planted in the late 1800s to become a feature in the landscape, fulfilling the ambition and more by becoming a much-loved visitor destination and landmark as the former frontier of the Roman Empire. It mentions the films that it's been in and the outcrying of public concern around this. What would be nice as an ecologist and arboriculturalist would be if the public got behind some of the other things out there that are getting decimated on a day-to-day basis. But there we go, it is what it is. So that was You Couldn't Plan It, and we will now get back to our subject of the podcast, which is BNG 18 months on. So is it actually delivering for nature, or is this just another box-ticking exercise slowing everybody down? So I'm going to try and cut through the noise. So a few talking points on this one. Just to give those of you that are new to the podcast a quick refresher, because BNG has been coming up a lot recently, 10% biodiversity net gain has been mandatory in the planning system in England since February 2024. Before that, you just had to demonstrate biodiversity enhancement, so things like bird boxes, bat boxes, wildflower planting, tree planting, all that kind of good stuff. But now you have to demonstrate a 10% above baseline value. And the promise around all of this was world-leading nature positive development. But in my opinion, the reality of this 1 year on is local planning authorities that are overwhelmed with legal agreements, monitoring that is probably never going to happen, exemptions that are being exploited, ecologists who got into ecology to really make a difference are now fighting over a couple of square metres of modified grassland in an industrial estate. Small developers are hammered by the cost of fractional biodiversity units, and as it stands at the moment, there's a real clear lack of monitoring or clarity on how this is going to be administered moving forwards. And, you know, the BNG, it could be so much more. And I think we really have to have another look at this and have a look at the smaller schemes and whether they should be taken out of this altogether. And we should just look at biodiversity enhancements. It could work a lot better if there was a lot more investment and hopefully, you know, some enforcement in the follow-up and not just sort of paper promises. We've all been to retail parks where the biodiversity enhancements that were conditioned on planning consent, like tree planting, are just stuck in all over the development site. Those trees end up getting snapped by children, trimmed by grounds maintenance contractors, snapped off by people parking, and 10 years later there's no trees in the car park. And I can kind of see BNG going the same way. And at the moment, you know, and I've had it confirmed in a recent email, is that there is just absolutely no pragmatism whatsoever in this now. So if you take, I guess I should nail my colours to the post on this. If you are a large-scale house builder who is taking an area of, you know, ex-arable fields, ex-grazing fields with hedgerows and trees and everything, and you're putting 1,200 houses in there, you should absolutely do everything that you possibly can do to achieve a biodiversity net gain. And if you can't, a financial contribution to a nature conservation body to do some good somewhere else is a great idea. Where this falls down massively is small community-based projects or small developers that perhaps they've bought sites maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, and those sites have been land banked and they're now just can't be developed because it's not viable. These small community projects that are maybe putting in some decking or extending a gazebo or something, and BNG gets caught up in it. They can't achieve it on site because there's no room. Off-site credits are either not available or prohibitively expensive, and there's a lot of problems around this. And unfortunately now Ecology is really, with the planning and infrastructure bill, is really in the media. Ecologists are under attack at the moment at a level we've never seen before, and we're blaming bats and newts when really we need to be looking at legislation and resourcing in a much clearer way. So let's end with some positivity. Let us go to Planning Permission Panic Line. You've got the questions, the planning system's a nightmare. We have got the answers. Welcome to the Planning Permission Panic Line. So we have got some, let's see if I can find some BNG related questions here. I'm sure I can. Isla from Oxfordshire writes, what happens if we plant new trees off-site to hit our biodiversity targets? Does that count? Well, yes, it does. There's two ways that the way biodiversity net gain works is that we try and take something that is natural and we try and turn it into a spreadsheet, and we give a numerical value to it. And I disagree with that at a fundamental level. Obviously something had to be done, but it means that, I'm trying to put this in layman terms, if you are losing grassland, planting trees won't, although you might get a biodiversity net gain on paper, what you won't do is satisfy what's known as the trading rules within the metric. The other thing is that if it's off-site, if that land is in your ownership, then that is probably a far better way to do it than buying credit. So first off, we want to try and achieve BNG on-site. If we can't achieve it on-site, we have to look at off-site. So it may be that landowner has got some other land either adjacent to, maybe that's in the blue line boundary, or maybe it's further afield but in the same local planning authority area. Maybe we could do some enhancements there. If that's not possible, then we look at purchasing off-site credits from a habitat bank. If that's not possible, or there aren't any credits, you then have to look at statutory credits from the government. And as soon as you go off-site, it all starts to get very, very expensive. So Isla, there's no straight answer to that. It just depends on the site and what your metric says as to what you need to achieve a net gain. Happy to look at the metric for you. There's another one here from a Declan in Dudley. We are converting a garage on the outskirts of Birmingham. Do we really need all these ecological surveys? It depends on the site and the context of the site. I would have to have a look at it. Generally speaking, a flat-roofed garage is going to have very, very low ecological value. You may well have to consider possibly nesting birds, possibly bats. I don't know what's around that garage or what there is there, but I suspect that the local planning authority will ask you for a preliminary bat roost assessment and a nesting bird assessment as well. So fairly simplistic on that one. I would suggest, if we've got time for one more. Yeah, we've got time for one more. Let me have a look what else we got. Another BNG related one. Hannah in Swindon says, we cleared our site last year, or to be clear, the person we bought the site off cleared it last year. Will that affect the biodiversity baseline for planning? Yes, it will. The site has to be baselined as it was back in January 2020, I believe. So if that was us, we'd see what photographic records there are of the site, and we'd also use online mapping tools as well. So yeah, that's a very tricky situation that a lot of people get caught up in. They think they are purchasing and inheriting a bare site ready to go, but actually once it goes into planning, the local authority says 2 years ago this was all bramble, scrub, etc. So yeah, don't be clearing those sites before submission. So there we go, folks. That is it for this week. So, you know, if you are in planning, ecology or development, is BNG hurting you? Drop me a message. Let me know. I would love to compare notes for you. And if you've got any questions, send them in. Drop us a follow on the on whatever platform you're looking at us on. We'd love to see you across on YouTube, where we've got a series of videos that we're ramping up at the moment, and I'll see you on the next one.